Okay, so turn-based strategy games. This is a genre that relies heavily on randomness to create challenge and tension. I mean, if you've played XCOM 2 before, you are painfully aware of what it's like watching your entire squad get butchered because your sniper missed that one shot that they were supposed to have a 90% chance to make. It sucks. But what would a strategy game look like that not only had little to no randomness, but also let you see your enemies' moves and respond to them before they even made them? That might sound stupidly easy, but that's actually the brilliance behind Into the Breach. It's a micro-strategy game from the makers of FTL. Now, I'm Steven Messner with PC Gamer, and today I'm giving you a short little preview of how this tiny strategy game subverts the genre in some pretty big ways. Okay, so this is Into the Breach. The gist of this game is that you are the last vestiges of humanity trying to survive against an all-out assault from these alien Vec that are emerging up through the planet's crust. And you do that by piloting these massive robots. I mean, who doesn't love fighting giant aliens and giant robots? So you pilot 3 mechs on your team, and each one has their own unique abilities that they bring that you're gonna have to use to sort of get through each battle. There's also several different squads, so as you continue to play the game and beat the campaign, you unlock coins which you can use to buy different squads. You can also customize and make your own custom squads, or you can make random squads and try playing that way. It's a lot of fun. So if we look at, say, the Rift Walkers, this is the first squad that you unlock. There's customization options for their color, but there's also things like their abilities. So the Titan Fist, you can see there on the little diagram, he punches the Vec, pushing it back 1 tile and dealing 2 damage. The Taurus Cannon does the same, except for it's a ranged attack and it only does 1 damage. And then the Artillery Mech fires a mortar which does 1 damage on the tile it lands on, but then pushes back all the tiles around it. Now that's kind of a basic squad, the Rift Walkers. I'm gonna show you what a more original squad, the Steel Judoka, because they have, frankly, they're my favorite. You know what, that's it. That's the only excuse I have. I wanna play these guys because they kick ass. So let's jump into a campaign and see what it's all about. So this is the campaign map, and if you see here, there's 4 different continents. Each one sort of has a different biome or environment type. There's a forest, a desert, so on, so on. Each one of these has missions that you'll take on for a specific corporation, and once you unlock one of these continents, or once you beat one of these continents, you'll move on to the next one. So the goal is that you can kind of take these on in any order you wish, but let's start with the desert. All right, just a little flavor text there. Similar to taking on the continents in a specific order, you can also choose which missions you want to take on in a specific order. I will explain a little bit about how missions work right now. So we've jumped right into a mission. I love how quickly this loads. You'll see here that we have our bonus objectives. So if we kill at least 7 enemies, we'll get a little star. And that star is actually currency that you can use to buy upgrades from the corporation once you secure the entire island. So you'll bank up a bunch of these stars, spend them, and then move on to the next island. And the second thing is protect the power generator. This building right here that I'm highlighting, it's kind of covered up by my mech though. This building there is the power generator. If I protect that during the entirety of the round, I will also earn power grid. And finally, the last thing is our victory condition. And now this is the same for all of the maps. They have a victory condition of survive X amount of turns. And that's really unique because it means you don't have to kill Vec. You can try to just deal damage directly, but often a much better strategy is to manipulate the battlefield to prevent Vec from making any of their attacks land. So if they're trying to attack a building, instead of trying to just kill it outright, trying to push or pull it around is usually the much smarter strategy. And we're gonna see how that plays out right now. So a lot just happened. If you were watching, oh my God, so many things just happened. Let's forget that an entire portion of the map just fell off for a second. One of the great things about Into the Breach is that it really flips the turn-based structure on its head. So instead of moving and then attacking and then passing the turn to the enemy who then moves and attacks, Into the Breach mixes it all up. What happens is enemies move, they broadcast their attacks, as you can see here, and then you have a chance to move and try and prevent them from completing those attacks. So let's break that down piece by piece. What we have here are 2 scarabs, and these are sort of like mortar launchers. They launch projectiles a really long distance, and they have both targeted these buildings here. Now, if these buildings are just hit by this attack, they will lose power grid. And power grid, listed up here, is sort of your overall health for the entirety of the campaign. So if I lose a ton of power grid in this mission, I'll go into the next mission and I'll only have that same amount of power grid. And if I lose it, then it's game over and I have to start from scratch. You can earn power grid by doing bonus objectives. You can also buy it from the corporation store once you have secured an island. So I definitely need to not let the enemy hit these buildings too much. So I need to stop these guys. Finally, the last thing is this leaper here has jumped over here. He has grabbed a hold of my judo mech and is holding him still and is going to deal 2 damage to him next turn. So I do not want that to happen. So what am I gonna do? Well, my judo mech has his special ability, which he flips an enemy over his head. You can see it with the green dots there. I'm gonna flip him into the water, instant kill. Love it, super quick, wasn't that hard to deal with. But now I have to deal with these 2 guys. But actually I don't, because what you'll notice here is these little tiles have all been marked for seismic activity. Now this is a special modifier that exists on just this map, and each map can have different modifiers, and they're also dependent on which continent you're fighting on. So the desert continent can have seismic activity where entire portions of the map disappear in between turns. The great thing is that that happens at the beginning of the turn, so these guys won't have a chance to attack before they fall into the abyss and die. So what I can instead do is position my mechs, I think, to get a little bit better of a drop on the enemy during next turn, and yeah, let's end the turn. Here we see the map drops away, those guys are dead. Instant easy kills. But more Vec have spawned. Now, you might have noticed those tiles, they were sort of like roiling, dirt was, you know, churning up from them. That marks the location of Vec reinforcements that come in each and every turn until the battle is over. So you can actually stop these reinforcements by moving the Vec or your units on top of them. They'll take damage, which is great if it's Vec, not so great if it's one of your mechs, but it will effectively prevent that reinforcement from entering the battle that turn. So that's really useful. Once again, this guy here is attacking, but he's gonna die, so I am not gonna worry about him. Now, I could flip him over my shoulder, but this Hornet has flying, so he doesn't drown instantly in water, so it'll do a little bit of damage, but really isn't worth it. Instead, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move my judo mech on top of this spawn point, stopping that enemy from coming in, and I'm gonna flip him onto this tile so that when the next round starts, he's instantly gonna die. Now, Scions are like buff units. They're sort of like your bards if this was an MMO party, in that they give passive effects to all the other Vec on screen. This one being they receive +1 HP as long as the Scion is living. So that makes these guys a little bit stronger and harder to deal with, and we definitely want to try and kill the Scion as soon as possible. And probably the best way to do that would actually be to move this mech out of the way. I'm gonna move Chloe, my siege mech, in, and I'm going to fire on this brace. Now, what you saw there is it pushed all of these tiles. If there was a Vec here, they would have been pushed back, just like he was. And now all of these Vec are handily on the edge of the map, where they are going to die. Except for I'm so dumb, because of course the Scion and this flying guy have flying. So why would they fall into the abyss? I don't know what I was thinking. That's the great thing about Into the Breach, is there are layers and layers and layers of these little nifty interactions with the tiles and the enemies and their abilities, and it can actually be a little bit challenging keeping track of it all. It takes a lot of practice to memorize these abilities and realize that, like, hey, this plan that I've developed isn't actually gonna work. Because if you heard the tone of my voice, I was real cocky a second ago. I thought I was so smart, but really I'm a dumbass, because that did nothing. So I'm gonna flip him over, and the reason I'm flipping him over is because he was gonna attack that building there, and I do not want that to happen. The only other thing is he is attacking my gravity mech, which I can simply just move the gravity mech out of the way of the attack, and that should be fine. But what I'm instead gonna do is I'm gonna move my gravity mech over here, I'm gonna use his grab well, and I'm gonna pull him into the water. And finally, I am going to use him. I don't want to fire there because that will cause damage. So the only other thing I can do actually is, I mean, I could just fire. Oh no, I do want to fire here. There, perfect. So I've eliminated the Scion. I forgot the way that calculates damage is on the tiles that are pushed, receive the 1 damage. And more seismic activity. He's going to make his attack. He's going to make his attack. And there it is. I lasted 4 turns. I have survived. Mission is complete. I did not complete all of my objectives, so I didn't get any of the star currency to spend in the corporation store, but I did get a little bit of power generator, which is awesome. All of my pilots got some experience points. When they level up enough, they will unlock some extra abilities, which is really helpful. Now, here's the cool thing. If I were to have lost that mission, say I lost all of my power grid, I'm terrible at this game, you do have to start over from scratch. You have to start over from the beginning, but that's okay because a total campaign can maybe take an hour to play through. What's great though is you can always send one of your pilots back in time. That essentially allows you to save that pilot from being deleted. So I can send my pilot back in time. He retains all of his skills and experience and abilities, and I can put him in a new mech and he'll keep on fighting another day, which is great. So there we go. So there you go, a little bit of taste of Into the Breach. Hopefully you can see why its take on turn-based strategy is so unique and so much fun. The great thing is once you beat sort of your first continent, the difficulty really starts to scale up with subsequent continents. It gets pretty challenging near the end. You can also change the difficulty up to hard if you're really looking for a tough as nails challenge. It's not as punishing as FTL, but it is just every bit as fun I've found so far. So the great news is Into the Breach is out next week on February 27th. It's going to be available on Steam, GOG, all the other usual suspects, and it's only going to be 15 bucks. So if you liked what you saw here today, be sure to check it out. We will have a full review on Into the Breach available on the website next week as soon as it launches. And other than that, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I'm Steven Messner. It's a pleasure as always. I hope you have a great rest of your day.